Alright, back on our motors here. This is my buell blast motor, and the crank I wanted came in. So that should be a new crank. New to me anyway. So we'll see what we got here. Alright, let's see what we can do here to see what's in this box here. My light went out for some reason. Yes, come on light. There it is. Alright, let's see what we can see over here. I need room to work. Alright, so this one is going to be putting an M8 top in on this motor. So I got an M8 connecting rod here that we're going to have to use to have made, be the top part. I don't have an M8, or not M8, this is twin cam. I don't have a twin cam male rod, I guess they're all, used them all up. So I have to come up with a twin cam crank somewhere, a junk one, to get a male rod out of it. That's good. And then we're going to swap out the parts here for what's in the buell motor, which is a real light duty rod. As far as I can tell, the buell blast and the XB motor, the 1200 and the 1000 motor, 9, all have the same connecting rods. I'm not sure about that, but as far as I can tell, that's how things are looking right now. Custom built up box here. Okay, that didn't want to work. It'll work this way. Crank coming out. Hey, it came out. Another box. Did a good job with any damage. Doesn't look all that pretty, but I think it did the job. 15 damn layers of boxes here. Rolled it up in here. Yep. That's what they did. A couple holes in the box, but it go all the way through. Won't let go. Alright. Got a few holes to put in the boxes, but it was beaten up on this side pretty good, but it didn't go all the way through, so it's alright. That qualifies as a good packing job. Alright, so that is one frail ass little flywheel. Man. Way too light. I'm not a big fan of light cranks. Alright, so there's a crank. Look how thin that thing is. There's no strength, and it's not here. It's in here. It's a little thinner. It's half what this is. That thing is a frail ass crank. You can see how it's real big and thick right here where it matters. All this counterweight stuff is super thin because Buell likes super lightweight crank. He's a road race guy. This rod actually looks pretty damn long. I didn't think they were that long of a rod. That looks like a normal Sportster length rod. I thought these were going to have a short rod in them. That looks like a nice long Harley rod, surprisingly. So, take it and put it like this. And take this and go center the hole here and out to here. It's not that much different, really. It's a little bit shorter than that one, but it looks like it's longer than the big twin Sportster rod, which is in that crank down there. And that's what that is. Excuse me. Alright, what do I got in the way of a Sportster rod laying around? Or any rod. I'm trying to think what I got laying around here. I don't think I have anything. Okay, so we need to measure it, so we need something long to measure with. So we need something long. That's what they make long measuring sticks for. You can use this, you can use a caliper. I got the caliper too, but I like measuring sticks. Alright, so the center crank pin is going to be right here. What's the diameter of the crank pin, all that we don't know yet either. So the diameter of the crank pin looks like 1 1/4 inches. Be my guess. So, okay, and the overall length. Junking way. So if you go center your crank pin here to your rod, that top dead center. So it'd be straight up and down like this, see? Looks like we're right about 7 1/2 inches. So 7/4/40 is your normal big twin Sportster length. So, okay. So what we need is a stock, regular early Harley rod length, but we need it with the big ass knob on the end down here to run the M8 piston on the end of it. So that makes it easier to get a rod because now I don't have to be super fancy on what I'm looking for. So I'm not a big fan of real light flywheels either. So basically we're going to have, we need to move the rod over this distance here. So that is roughly about 3/4 of an inch. So we're moving it over. So the distance I can make up real easy is cut the side of this flywheel away and move it over that much. But that's only a 1/2 inch. But the bad part is this is a press-in pin, and this is part of the pressing part. So I can't really do that. There's nothing to hold this thing together. So in order to do that, I would have to weld that crank pin into there to do that. Because I'm cutting away all the support of the flywheel, and I'm cutting away on the dry side. Now this side wouldn't be as bad, but I got to cut the dry side away. Because I got to get this rod moved way over. And even if it went all the way over, we're only going to gain about 1/2 inch. Now the rod appears to be roughly about 800 thou thick. And where's the twin cam rod? Twin cam rod's right here. And that appears to be 3/4 of an inch. So that's probably about close to what that is. Yeah, about 3/4. So it looks like that's just normal width of a rod. So that means we're going to have to move it over, and we're going to have a dog leg in the rod, which is not the ideal situation. Or it's going to be offset up inside the piston when you have the piston on the end of it in here. So the piston would be, you'd be offsetting it in, instead of being straight up here and move it over. Now all pistons have some clearance up in here. See the clearance right in here. So automatic can go over that far for free. Then you start cutting the piston away over here and you move over some more. So between offsetting it here a little bit and a little bit over here, we can come up with a 3/4 inch offset I need right here. So that'd be one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is making the case wider and spreading the case apart, but being a Sportster, that's going to screw up your transmission because the transmission is going between this side and that side, and if you change that, the transmission width's all screwed up and it really starts becoming a problem. On a big twin case, you can move things like that easily because there's nothing here to stop you from moving. It's It's in a frame. You change the bolt, but you change the bolt location, you can move it over as far as you want. So big twins are easy because it's separate tranny. But when you got the transmission here, part of the case, you can't move it that much. You could probably gain, you can probably get 1/8 of an inch in there and make it up, because you got the bearing in here, bearing in here. You know, you could probably get 1/8 of an inch out. So you get 1/8 inch in here, 1/8 inch on this case by making it wider. There your 1/4, and we get another 1/2 inch right here, and there's our 3/4 of an inch, and we made it up. Yeah, but I would have to weld the crank pin into this flywheel, which is kind of awkward. And the other thing I want to do is I wanted to move the, I want to go to a big twin cam crank pin instead of the small one. I go up to the big one, and so I want to do that also. So that put it way over here. But the problem when you weld a crank pin into a flywheel, it moves it all over the place, and you don't have any real good way of doing that. So that's another problem. Now the other thing I can do, I can move the whole crank over a little bit, which is can be done. You have a gap right in here, you can cut that, slide it over a little bit. It doesn't look like there's anything you're going to hit on the case in here. If you slid it over, you know, obviously this is flat, and that case race right there is flat. So you can see how you still got a lot of clearance in there if you did that. So I can move that over 1/4 inch right there, that bearing. And I could probably recess the bearing actually into the flywheel a little bit. It's right on the edge of this area here, so not much material here to work with. This wheel's really thin. So I can trim that a little bit and get some more. If I cut 1/8 inch off of this, I don't think I'm going to weaken my crank pin too much holding power wise, especially if I go to a bigger diameter. So I think I'm going to wind up doing a bunch of everything to get this rod kind of where I want it to be. So I can also offset this wrist pin over here a little bit. You know, you can move this thing, you can make this thing flush over here, kick it over a little bit. So looks like it's going to be 1/8 here, 1/8 there, 1/8 there, and enough eighths add up, you got what you need. Because there's no easy way of doing it. I was hoping just to move the thing over, but there's no thickness here. I'm used to working on flywheels. You got thickness. See how thick this thing is in here? You got room. You can take that rod, put it right up against that edge, trim a little bit off there, and you still got this much material you're working with. But on this crank here, there's no material. So that leaves me not a lot of options. Okay, now this is still a Timken bearing motor, which is like the old Sportster motor. This one, the XB motor, has a big roller bearing down there. So the Buell XB, even though the Buell Blast is an XB motor, it still uses basically the old 03 and earlier Sportster, Evo Sportster 5-speed bike style crank. So I'd have to get one of those cases to see if this would actually fit in there, but I bet you it probably would fit. This is a little bit longer on this side, it looks like, but the 5-speed bike might be that long too because it has all the alternator and all that stuff in there, so it's probably the same. This side over here is the same for all years. This goes back to, this whole arrangement right here goes back to 1977, and the width right here goes all the way back to goes back to 1937. Same design, basically. Not much difference. The only difference was it got longer for the nut right here, sticking out. Alright, so that's kind of disappointing. I'm not going to be able to do exactly what I wanted, but you get the idea. We'll make it work. So the M8 head I got here is right here. It's a 114 CVO to 2017 only. I found that out. So that's what that 114 up there means. It's a CVO head. So this was on a road turd bike or anything with a CVO for that first year of the twin cam. So this is a water cooled head, I guess. It's got these big holes right over here, and it's got the cavity underneath, down inside the hole there. I don't know if you can see in there. There's a cavity that's casted in. Kind of dark in there, so it's hard to see. Yeah, lights on. Get up here, maybe you can see better. No, still dark. So anyway, that's that way. Now the oil-cooled head, what they did was they have like a crescent-shaped manifold here and the holes up over here. So the oil head, even though that's the most common because that's 18 and newer, when I put the port over here, that's going to be more in the way. This one here, I'm going to try to put the port above this hole. I'll put the port way up here, but that oil hole would be in the way on that style. So I'm going to use this style head. I might even use this head right here, I'm not sure. This head I put brand new valve guides in it. The valve job, I never completed it. But I have a head I bought that looks brand spanking new, so when I get here I'll see. And that'll complete the second set of these. And this one I already got the two seats out, so it's ready to be welded on as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to weld that whole chamber up anyway and change it and change the ports and everything. The intake port I might leave offset slightly, I haven't decided yet. The exhaust I'm going to try to put on center, but we'll see. Yet to be determined how we're going to do that. First thing I do is get it bolted onto the cases here and get that part figured out. Alright, so I got to figure out how much of this I'm going to cheat on. I don't have a transmission for the buell blast motor. And once again, I think it's the same transmission as the regular Sportster motor, but there might be some changes. I know the shifting mechanism is different between the XB motor and this motor. And it's probably different between that and the old 1200 Sportster motor too, I bet. The regular Evo motor. So there's some slight variations. I think the individual gears are probably all the same, but there's a couple changes here and there. I know the shift forks and stuff, they got two different shift mechanisms. So, like I said, this motor is just all different how it's made on that other side. This motor is kind of a cross between the XB and the old solid mount, between the earlier 1200 motor. So we'll figure it out. Alright, so I got some cylinders coming for that. I got another head coming. I got some rocker arms and shafts coming. I have no rocker boxes, so I need a set of rocker boxes. Anybody go set. Damage is fine. Black preferred, because I don't know how many welding on them anyway. I don't need to be welding through chrome. But I'll take chrome if I get them. If anybody's got an old buell blast motor with a tranny, I need a tranny. And all the shifting stuff to figure out what I'm going to do on that side. This side I'm not too concerned about because I'm going to do custom stuff over here. Plus I already got everything anyway, I think. Here's all the gears here, the oil pumps there, cams are there. So yeah, I got this side covered already. I ain't worried about the lifters, so we'll deal with it. Alright, this thing is just nothing here. It's just tissue paper. I'm surprised the rod is as long as it is. I was expecting a real short rod. So that actually is probably a plus. Somewhere around here I got a Corilla rod for a big twin. For Evo probably. I don't know what I did with it. It's in all the crap over here someplace. Go hunting up on that shelf over there, I might find it. If I find it, then I have a rod that I can use. Because it'll be the male rod, what I need. And it's going to be 1.25 inches, same as it goes into this, so that's if I stay with this crank pin. Like I said, I'd rather go with something bigger. Alright, well that's it for that. Until we get more parts, we're on hold again on the race motors.